without wasting too much time, let me get right into it. Right. My name is Ephraim Adiele. I'm a media and business development consultant. And first of all, I want to thank my good friend and brother, Arthur, for this wonderful time out to have meaningful conversation. I also want to use this opportunity to wish him happy birthday once again. I pray for many more years of prosperity, goodness, and health. Thank you, Arthur, also for the privilege to speak to fellow growing Nigerians on this platform. So my session is supposed to be on the power of storytelling and building brands and inspiring growth, right? So first of all, why did Arthur tell me to have this conversation? Well, it's because I've had a long career in building different brands and telling different types of stories for different audiences over the course of this 2025, over the course of 14 to 15 years that I have worked as a professional. So just to give you a rundown so you get where I'm coming from mentally before we get into the crux of the matter. So I started my career as a blogger, an entertainment blogger, and that career path gave me the opportunity to move into PR on behalf of artists and entertainers. From there, I moved on to journalism, focusing mostly on politics. I have also had to do work in digital publishing, in music. Like as a proper record label, I worked at Universal Music. I've also done e-commerce, real estate, cloud computing, and sports, of course, sports and sports manufacturing. So what I have learned in all of this is the power of a story. So in the summary of what I'm trying to say is the reason why I'm able to move across different spheres or different fields is basically because of media. And what media does is teach you the power of storytelling, which is what I'm here to talk about. Storytelling, building a narrative, staying consistent with it, and using that to scale and convert. So over the course of my career, I've had front row seats to a lot of narratives. I've chronicled several ideas that have made people feel maybe differently from the way they were feeling when they met the message. I've worked in brands where we've made people buy things they don't necessarily need, but we make them want them. I've worked in sports where it's quite an emotional field where you have to look for the best way to get people to interact with whatever you're trying to put out. I've worked with journalists in newsrooms where everybody's trying to get a single truth out of multiple angles, but we are all arriving at the same goal. So like I said, what's the thread that joins all of these things that I have done in my career is storytelling in building brands. So let's talk about a few of the things that has held throughout the course of my career, whether I was selling a political aspirant, a product, a digital brand, a musician, whatever it was I was trying to sell to the public, you always have to go through the route of building narratives and storytelling. I think the best place to start will be politics, because that's an aspect of life that touches everybody. Um, um, I can see my boss is here, Mr. Valentine Ozibo. Good morning, sir, and special shout out to you, because even though I had been doing this before I met you, working with Mr. Ozibo, sort of fine-tuned everything I had learned from 2014 to 2020, and I had a proper platform to exhibit all of those in one single space. So like I said, let's start with political media. Some people call this propaganda, which might hold true to a large extent until when it is time to talk about integrity and the factual nature of the story that you're telling. So while working in politics, I learned the brutal truth that your story is the weapon. Your story is basically the weapon which you go to war with, quote unquote war, not. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. Your story can unite, your story can divide, your story can inspire, and your story can terrify. I'll use a few people to talk about this. We have several politicians who are unifying figures in the country. We have figures that divide, that whenever their names are mentioned, you have divided opinion on them. There are some that the opinion everybody has about them is a single unified opinion. We also have people who are inspirational. And if I do say so myself, Mr. Ozibo is one of those kind of people who are inspirational. While there are other people who their story naturally just terrifies people. We've had the Ateke Toms, Tom Polo, and all of them who, by merely existing and by hearing the narratives and the stories that have been told about them continuously over and over again, you eventually build a mindset as to how you want to view them. Pardon my using this person as a reference point. He might not be the greatest person in world history or the most loved, but I personally have done a lot of study on him, and I have found out why people took him serious. I'll divert a little bit also before I get into that. In university, one of my friends, Didi, he used to say jokingly, but there was a lot of truth in it. He used to say, Jesus Christ had a lot of charisma. He did not use the word charisma, although he used the word swag, but that's just basically what he means. Jesus Christ had a lot of charisma. Without that kind of charisma, nobody's going to listen to you. So I think Hitler, that's the person I wanted to refer to earlier on. Adolf Hitler is somebody who had a lot of charisma and whose way of thinking, though he eventually did a lot of evil, but if you go through his story, you realize that he had a very interesting train of thought. And why I brought up Hitler here is because he realized that it is quite easy for you to, I will not use the word easy, there's a pathway through which you can control the mindset of a broad spectrum of people. Hitler had a ministry called the Ministry of Propaganda, which several countries also applied to the people like North Korea, Russia. So that's the negative aspect of storytelling. So Hitler says you should keep the message because of people do not like complex information. Whenever you're trying to convert or you're trying to use a story or you're trying to have a narrative that should convert to people who are not close to you, you have to keep the message simple and you repeat it. There's a saying that if you repeat something long enough, it becomes true, even if it is not. So that's exactly how storytelling and narrative works. So now I'm not suggesting we use propaganda in business, but we just have to understand the core mechanics with which it is a strategic way of going about pushing out your narrative. Now, when I say narrative, it is not just a tagline by saying, oh, like Tinubu is renewed hope, Buhari was change, Obama was yes, we can. So yes, it's not just the tagline. Taglines help because they help you keep your simple message as simple as possible. So in 2015, everybody was saying change. There was really no, I can always ask people, what made you believe Buhari was the guy? He had not shown any competence in business. He has not shown any competence as an economist in policy. There was really nothing to back the Buhari euphoria that we had in 2014 stroke 2015. There was really nothing. And if you do a deep study, you realize it all boiled down to propaganda, to the narrative, to the storytelling, and the messaging that they put behind it. So first, the APC came with that simple message like Hitler prescribed. Keep the message simple, change. The message was simple, change. And they repeated it as many times as possible to I will not use the word confuse, but I'll say to convince the target audience, right? This is very important. You have to have those kind of subtle messages that stick over time if you repeat it long enough. Now, apart from the issue of change, they also had a few sticking points, which we still face till today, but those were the reasons why Nigerians, quote and unquote, hated Jonathan and I will not say voted him out and allowed for him to leave. So you had things like corruption. Corruption is still endemic in Nigeria. You had Boko Haram, which have not relented. So if you wake up in the morning, you see a newspaper headline, so and so amount is stolen, so and so amount is missing, 10 people are killed, 20 people are killed. Exactly what is still happening to you today. But as at then, the APC machinery took over the media space and they put out these messages as often and as consistently as possible to change the mindset of Nigerians. Even though we are not exactly suffering the kind of economic realities that we are facing today, but yeah, that's what happens. So, like I said, a simple message can convey a complex policy that you're trying to sell to the people. I mentioned I worked in tech. I did quite the work for a platform that does cloud computing. So instead of you just telling, well, we sell server space, there has to be a part where you're touching the emotions of people. Storytelling is about getting people to relate to what you're trying to tell them. Like if you're telling people things they cannot relate with, things that are far from their realities, you're doing yourself a disservice. But if you tie your narrative to relatable things, if you tie your narrative to things that are daily realities of people, you get a lot of traction from that. So like I said, when we are working in tech, we are not just telling them, oh, it's not, we have a server where you can store your information. That's not what we have to sell. We have to sell the speed. We have to sell reliability. We have to sell innovation. We have to sell the fact that people can trust us with their data and go to bed. So we have to attach our storytelling to the realities that they are facing in since we are selling to businesses, we have to sell to the realities that businesses face when it comes to the safety of data. I might not need to mention the name, but I worked at one of the most popular e-commerce platforms in Africa. And working there, you do not just say, oh, we have this website where you sell things. You have to come with a story. So, and you have to make it relatable, like I mentioned. So you're talking of maybe a parent who is quite busy and can't exactly do all the shopping he needs or she needs for the child. But we can say, oh, on this platform, you can we attach ourselves as a solution to your daily problems. The content we are putting out, we are on social media, for example, we are not really, they did not carry any prizes. They did not carry, say, buy this television for so and so amount. On social media, we are not really selling the product. We are selling a storyline that we attach to the brand that we attach to the brand, so to speak. So we are talking of people who, let's say, for example, in Nigeria, where there's epileptic power supply, you can attach the fact that people would not want to miss their favorite show. You can create a content about how they don't want to miss their favorite show or their favorite team playing football by getting an inverter. And where can you get that inverter? On our platform. Your child just spoiled your phone, but you don't want to get a new one. Where can you get a refurbished phone? Where can you repair the phone? So those are the kind of narratives. We are bringing the brand closer to home, and that's the way we'll sell. We'll sell by bringing the brand closer to home. We are selling empowerment, convenience, partnership. We are putting ourselves in as many relatable situations as the customer might find his or herself. So the growth lesson here is when you're building your brand story, you have to build it not just around what you sell, but you have to think of the demography of the audience you're trying to target. So you have to look at who they are, what they aspire to be, and how your product can tie into, or how your brand, maybe you're not selling a product, maybe you're selling a service, how your brand can tie into those realities, those daily realities that they face. That's how you can move from you trying to seal a transaction to having a relationship. I don't want to do a lot. I don't want to do too much advert here, but I know how many brands I have verbally told my friends to make use of simply because of these things that I have mentioned. I have seen their story. I've seen the kind of narrative and the kind of the light that they want to be portrayed in. And this has made me patronize them. Now, this now ties into the next thing I want to talk about. When you're talking of a narrative, so that's why I was talking about the truth factor in building a storyline. So like I mentioned, this narrative is important. The story is very important. But what I learned when I was doing journalism is not just the story, is the integrity of the story that you're trying to push. So for example, in journalism, your credibility is your currency. When people know that your platform is known for fake news, is known for unreliable information, best believe nobody's going to stay on your platform for a long time, right? So when you're pushing your narrative, it must be backed by verifiable truth. So for example, let me segue a bit into somebody I've mentioned earlier on. I know many of you are familiar with the person of Mr. Valentine Ozigbo. Sometime in June, I had a conversation with somebody from Anambra here in Lagos, and we are just having a conversation. Let's not go into the details, but I simply asked him, asked him a simple question. Why do you like Mr. Ozigbo? Like, why is Mr. Ozigbo's political career important to you? Or why is it personal? Why do you take it personal? And he thought for a long time, and he could not give me a coherent answer. And I told him, I understand why you cannot give me an answer. The answer is because you don't even have the answer. Now, it comes from these things that I have mentioned before, which is building a narrative and making sure it is true. Now, this is the second part, the integrity part of the narrative and the story that you're trying to tell. So now, if you ask the average person about Mr. Ozigbo, what you hear is, Ozigbo Madu, he's a good person, he's a good person. So I now asked this same guy, you believe Mr. Val is a good person, which you are very correct, 100%, you're right, he's actually a good person. But have you met him one-on-one before? Have you seen him? Have you had a conversation with him before? His answer was no. And I understood because I know that he has not met Mr. Ozigbo before, but with the power of consistent storytelling, backed with the actual integrity of the person we speak of, those two together, the marriage of those two will give you conversion. So you have people who have not met this person, but they have an emotional attachment to this person. They believe this person's journey. They feel they're already part of his story, whether they've met him or not. And that's a powerful story backed up with integrity. So like I said, in journalism, credibility is the most important currency. Your story must be built on verifiable truth. Just like in music, when I worked in music, the authenticity of the story that the artist is telling is what converts. First of all, a lot of artists will always try to push their personal stories. Now that their personal stories is to draw you in and make it relatable to a wider audience. First things first. Then next, in the music, they have to say relatable things or things that people aspire to be or can see, not very abstract things. Like you barely hear anybody talking about intricate details of spirituality or how it's not going, it might not convert. But if you're talking about what people are, what they aspire to be, their current situation, things that are quite relatable, then your song is selling, right? So the fusion of truth, feeling, and the feeling, like I said, which comes from the storytelling, is what sells your brand. I can give a few more examples, but I know I'm running out of time, so I'll beg Arthur to give me a few more minutes. I still have a lot to say, but I'll just ask for a few more minutes. Let me just try and round up. Although I've hit the nail on the head, which I wanted to, which is about talking about brand storytelling and your narrative and tying it into integrity, right? So the final, well, I wanted to cite a few examples before I move forward. So if you're selling, for example, in sports, people believe the English Premier League is the best league in the world. And if I ask why, because if in real football, when it's time for football issues, it's not every time that the English teams surpass teams from other countries. But we all have this mindset at the back of our heads that the English Premier League is the best league. And that is because of the powerful nature of the storytelling that has backed the English Premier League over time, right? So you see the advertisement is more glamorous than other leagues. It's in your face. You already have an emotional attachment. You feel bad when you're missing your team's games and all of that. So that also ties into storytelling, the stats, the camera angles and all of that. The everything that is attached to that brand is about storytelling, a consistent storytelling. So not just storytelling, it has to be consistent, because if there's a break, it defeats the purpose of integrity. I also worked in real estate, although briefly. When I was in real estate, we are not just saying, "Oh, this house has 3 beds, 2 toilets, 7 toilets." That's not what we are selling. We are telling the customer that this is where that you should visualize your family growing in this home, right? Like this home is supposed to be your safe space after fighting the world, so to speak. After having issues outside with work, with human being, this is your safe space. So we are attaching a lot of storytelling into the personal angle of the houses that we are trying to sell. We sold the future to them because, of course, everybody wants a comfortable future. So we are selling a future that they can relate with. We are selling not just the house, we are selling their family, so everybody can get creative when necessary, right? So when the story is authentic and consistent, you build trust. And as we know, the digital landscape is very noisy and trust is quite scarce because not everybody trusts what they see. But if your brand is consistent with the story it is telling, and if it's consistent with the story it's telling and it is true, because it has to have integrity, an integrity backup, right? So these things that I have mentioned is what, like I also worked in digital marketing. These things that I have mentioned is what digital marketers use when they are doing stuff, right? Sorry, I don't know if I broke up briefly. So in digital marketing, we have tools where we use to check a lot of things. Like for example, if you're telling a story and you need, let's say for example, we've posted several videos right? So we now go to the back end and we check the watch time of these videos. If you check the watch time of the videos, you will see the average watch time. You see the average place where most people drop off the video or how many people watch to the end. And if there's an average consistent watch time and where people stop watching the video, as a serious digital marketer, it is your job to find out where that point is and improve on the storytelling that will make people watch to the entire duration of the video. So empathy is very important, like I mentioned earlier on. So when you're telling your story, you have to touch the human angle, the emotional part of people, what they can easily relate with. It makes your customer feel right, right? It also adds to your story. It makes your customer dependable, depend on you, and also makes them spokesmen for you. Like I mentioned, I've introduced so many brands to my friends because of this sort of strategy. So what have I learned so far in my career? I've learned that yes, as a data, I'm very in love with data. So as a data-driven person, data can inform. It can give you an idea of where you stand, where you can head to, what is working and what is not. But it is your story. It is your story, not just the data. It is your story that actually transforms. It is your story that converts. It is your story that keeps people coming back to you, not just once, but over and over and over and over again. I still have a lot to say, but let me just round up. But let me just round up. I do have a lot to say. This is a topic that I've worked in all my life, so I'm quite passionate about talking about storytelling, brand building, and all of that. So the summary is, as someone who's trying to build something, who's trying to get things done, who's trying to connect to an audience that is not your immediate audience or who's not surrounding you or trying to reach out to strangers. It is your job to provide the stage, the story, the integrity, and the connection that is going to make these people take your job personally. In the end, the power of storytelling is what builds belonging, because you see people saying, oh, I like Adidas more than Nike. If you check it, they are all really the same products, right? But proper storytelling over time gives people an emotional attachment to your brand over your competitors. And from there, that's where growth happens. Like I said, I have a lot to say, but I hope I have been able to give a direction as to how anybody who's trying to build anything can use storytelling to re-engineer the mindset of whoever you're trying to reach out to, as a customer, as a fan, as whatever you're trying to do. Storytelling and conscious, not just storytelling, conscious storytelling, deliberate attention to detail, understanding your audience, which is very, very important. It's something a lot of people do not do when they try to push things or promote things. A lot of people usually see it from their own, from their own side of the table, right? But one thing I've always done in every facet of my career is to go to the other side of the table and imagine I am the one who is receiving what I'm trying to dish out and what will be my reaction to these things. So if you can do all of these things, then you're on the right track. Like we say when we are in secondary school doing debate, with this viewpoint of mine, I hope I've been able to convince you, and not to confuse you, that storytelling is a powerful tool to re-engineer the mind and also to push your brand. Thank you very much. And once again, thank you, Arthur, for this opportunity. Cheers.
Greetings, Arthur. Greetings, my able speak. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I have to thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. It looks from your presentation you are a workaholic, because I was trying to capture one page, you're into another. I'm trying to capture another page. Thank God for recording, so I'll take my time to listen to it over and over. I appreciate your effort on that. That's number one. Then number two, my main question is, how can somebody who is not in a digital age improve his visibility and branding? Because everybody has not been totally exposed. I'm witnessing that with for example, we're having a fixed pay method of paying school fees because we own and run school. And most parents and students are asked, okay, use this platform. That is the latest brand so that we can be able to checkmate the inflow of school fees without diverting funds. So we noticed that I'm surprised like about 40% of both students and parents have not been able to upgrade to that level of digital economy. So for a businessman who has done transaction and from youths who have internet, they use it only for social media. How do they improve their branding and visibility so that they can, wherever they are, sell to the world and make it look perfect? Thank you.
Okay. Although I don't have a full grasp of what you're trying to ask, I believe it is something around the lines of um, you have a mostly physical product, but you're trying to use the digital space, especially for those who do not have access to that digital space to sell that product.
Yes, yes, yes.
All right. So there are two ways. This is quite important, but there are two ways you can easily go about this. One, like I said earlier on when I was speaking, I said you need to understand your customer and meet them where they are, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, so you already have an idea that these people are not the digital savvy type to
Okay.
start with. So, one solution is to go to them or to meet them where they are. So you already have a mental idea that, okay, like you mentioned, up to 40%. So you have an idea that 60% of your clientele, so to speak, are digitally literate, while the other 40% are not. So this is the first solution that I can advise. The first solution is not to force them into complying with your the digital side of your business, right? You can think of solutions that will meet them at their non-digital point of view, right? Um,
Okay.
yeah. So that's why brands, if Techno is releasing a phone till tomorrow, Techno will still go and do a band setup on the streets or in a market, right? In as much as they are
Okay.
doing TV ads, they are doing radio ads, they are using influencers, they are doing big events to launch the product. After all of that, this is about understanding your target audience. They know the people that are digitally savvy must have seen it. Those who watch television must have
Okay.
seen it. Those who listen to radio, those who follow influencers. But they are also aware that there's a demography who might have missed all of this, so they still take the product to the street physically. So you can now think of a solution where you're going to meet your client where they stand. If it is, I don't know the model of your business, but that's the summary of what I'm trying to say. You can meet them where they are. You don't have to drag them out of their safe space. That's one solution. Then
Okay.
solution two, which might take a little more time, is trying to convert them from non-digital clients to digital clients. So, and that also ties in back to several things that I have said, the storytelling. So you have to always, at every point in time, tell them the advantage of why they need to move from where they are to where the other clients are. You sell the ease, sell the speed, sell the transparency, sell the convenience, sell the fact that they don't have to leave their houses to make these transactions done. So it's a gradual process, but gradually you have to sell to those non-digital clients the advantages of being in the digital space. So those are the
Oh,
two. quick solutions that I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe if we have a sit down and you really give me a breakdown of your business, other solutions can come up. But off the top, those are the two solutions. You either meet them where they stand, or you gradually convert them. You can't rush people, so you have to be patient with that also.